Today we celebrate the solemnity of the apostles Peter and Paul. And I always wondered, why is it that these two apostles have to share a feast day when other apostles that seem less relevant have a feast day of their own? Think about it. St. Andrew, probably not as important as Peter, but he has his own day. St. John the Evangelist, he has his own day. St. Matthias, on my birthday, he has his own feast day, 14th of May. But suddenly, Peter and Paul, the church groups both of them together in one date. Why is this? What binds these two people together so strongly that the church wants to celebrate them together? And somebody could say, well, what binds them together is the numerous things that make them so similar one to the other. For example, what is similar between Peter and Paul? Both of them were preachers in Rome. Both of them were martyrs in Rome. They say that both of them died on the same day in different years in Rome. Both of them obviously were apostles and both of them were Jews. So is the answer we bring them together in the same date because they have so many things that are similar among the two of them? Well, one could reply, but there are plenty of things that make them different too. One outstanding difference between Peter and Paul was that Peter, we could say, was an uneducated man. He was a fisherman, while Paul, on the other side, was an intellectual man. He was a man who was dedicated to studying. Well, what is the answer that I'm going to offer to the question, why do we celebrate them together? Not so much for what's similar, but because they complete each other. Peter and Paul complete each other. This is my theory. Think about Peter, okay? What's the symbol of Peter? Peter has two symbols: the rock and the keys. Peter is the symbol of authority. Peter is the authority among the 12 apostles. He is the center. He is the one that people turn to in the moment of conflict and distress and dispute. Peter becomes the symbol of the authority that settles conflict. When we think about Peter, we think about tradition. We think about building upon the pillars of the apostles. Now think about Paul. Think about how Paul is different from Peter. What are the symbols of Paul? The symbols of Paul are the sword, because his head got chopped off, but also because it expresses a little bit the impetus of sharing the faith. And the other symbol of Paul is the feather, right, with which he wrote his letters. So if Peter is the center and Peter is authority, what is Paul? Paul is the expression of audacity and mission. So look how they complement each other. Peter is the center that binds us, but Paul is the principle that sends us out and reminds us that the church is always in mission. Peter is the authority. Paul is the one that reminds us that the church is not just to gather a few, but the church is fundamentally always in mission towards the ends of the earth. So that's why the church brings these two saints together. Because it wants to remind us the nature of the church. The church has in itself a principle of authority that resides in the Pope, but at the same time, the church doesn't rest only in the principle of authority and there's a person who gives us all the answers, but the church also rests in the principle of evangelization, mission, going out to the ends of the earth. So that is why the church brings these two people together. Because they too lay the foundations of what the church is going to look like in every century until the coming of our Lord. Always looking towards Peter, but always going from Peter to the outside. To make things even more interesting, not only does the church has these two principles, but these two principles need each other. And these two principles have an interplay between the two of them. Let me ask you a question. What happens when you only have authority but you don't have mission? You have no vision. Thank you. You have no vision, but you also have the threat of tyranny. Right? If everything is centered in the authority, there's always the risk of tyranny. So how do they play with each other and balance each other out? Do you remember when Peter, as the head of the church, when he starts being scared of going to the pagans because he was afraid of what the Jews were going to tell him, the Christians that came from Judaism, who was the one that calls Peter out? Tells Peter, you're being a coward. You have to go and spread the mission to everyone. Paul is the one who does that. You see how they need each other? Paul is the one who calls out on Peter when Peter is abusing his authority and just playing political games. But at the same time, what happens when you have the principle of mission without its reference to the center? Then you can have rebellious people. But do you guys remember what Paul says? Paul says that after he had preached, what did he do? He went to Jerusalem to find Peter and the columns of the church to be sure that what he had preached wasn't in vain. So those who are in the mission also need of the center so that they can be asserted and confirmed in their preaching. So that's the way how these two principles need each other. Okay, now let's bring it to our world. Let's bring it to our own lives. Number one, a parish. A parish has to have these two components. What do I mean? A parish needs to have its reference to Peter. I think a healthy parish is a parish that claims its relationship with tradition. A parish that feels connected with the Church of Peter. A parish that feels connected with the church magisterium. A parish that resonates with what the church wants to teach in the person of Peter. So each parish is not its own thing, but each parish is connected with Peter. But at the same time, each parish needs to have the principle of mission, the principle of Paul. So today we can ask ourselves this question. In this parish of ours, St. Mark's, are we connected enough? Are we grounded enough in the principle of authority of Peter? I could say, I think we are. I think we want to be grounded in tradition and in Peter. But then we could ask ourselves this question too. Is this parish missionary enough? Are we always in the fringes? Are we going to the last corners of the earth to preach the gospel? Or are we excessively comfortable with those who are already coming to the parish? Now let us bring this to our own life. Each one of us, faithful from St. Mark's, Are we grounded enough in the faith of Peter? Are we Catholics in full communion of mind with everything that the church teaches? Do we embrace joyfully and proudly the magisterium of the church? Are we grounded in the principle of Peter? And we could also ask ourselves this question. Do you embody enough the principle of mission that Paul brings today in this celebration? Are you apostolic enough? Are you open enough to share the faith with those who yet haven't heard the good news? So brothers and sisters, today, let us rejoice in this beautiful feast day. In this great feast day of these two martyrs, Peter and Paul. And let us be sure that in this parish of ours and in the life of each one of us, we can embody at the same time the principle of Peter and the principle of Paul. And that is why the church brings these two saints together. Not so much for the ways in which they are similar, but in the ways in which they complete each other.